Hi, this is Bea from Sorcery Soap, and I have a few announcements and things I want to share with you today. One of them is I'm happy to report that people from all over the world have purchased the Sorcery Soap Dough books, which is mind-blowing to me, and I'm so grateful. And you know, I don't just sit around and do nothing. I'm pretty busy, and I'm always looking at things from a different point of view. And so I wanted to share with you today some things that I'm working on. So some may have already been doing this. Well, I know tons of people have been doing this. And so this isn't anything new. It's just I'm bringing my ideas to the table and what I think about the situation. So here we go. So I don't know, some of you know that a while ago I started making stencils so that I could put, and I have lots of videos on this, so I don't know if I have to go over this entirely, but a whole bunch of designs so I could put soap dough on top of my soaps. And before I started to do this, I was hand painting on soaps, and which is great. As far as detail and uniqueness and originality and all those aspects, and they wash off pretty quick. And I thought, well, I could do stencils and put soap dough on them, and that would be like more attractive. And so I have done that, and they're very successful and really interesting. And I really love the idea that I can change the nature of the soap with just a design on top after these bars were a failed bar of soap dough because temperature is very important. But anyway, I wanted to utilize these bars after I made them, and they were sent free because I was making them with soap dough. And I thought, how could I do something to make them more attractive? And you know, it always starts with me. How could I make them more attractive to me? And so that's how all these stencils came about. And then most recently, I started rolling out soap dough flat, and I have a couple videos for these two, and then cutting out the shape so that they're raised. And so that's even more unique, and it'll last a lot longer. So that led me to another idea, which was stamping them. And so I asked myself a couple different questions, you know, why haven't I, or what brought me? Well, for whatever reason, this is just where it evolved to. And there's something very freeing in it for me to do a single color pour soap and be successful at that with a fragrance oil that I like, or that I even might want to misbehave, and then be able to decorate my soaps in a different way. So it's just another tool in my toolbox to see, you know, the things I can create and come up with, and the things, you know, I'll always offer things that aren't out there. I'm not going to duplicate anybody else's ideas. And, you know, the things that interest me, and, you know, horses interest me. That's one aspect. Flowers do. And I love this bouquet of flowers. I made this with a stencil, and then I tried to make it with water paper, printable, edible paper, and that wasn't quite successful. But I really like the bouquet, and I like how much detail in it. And that's the other thing that I brought to my own attention is what's so appealing about this. And what's appealing to me is the extreme detail. Some of these very sharp edges are difficult to get into a stencil correctly, and that once it's done, it's like it's a flat surface, and it's going to stay for the length of how deep this is how much soap it is. So once this all wears off, and then it'll just turn into a smaller bar of soap. And you don't even have to fill it in with soap dough. I just wanted to show you what I do and how I do it today. You don't have to fill it in with soap dough, but I thought it was really cool filled in with soap dough. Of course, I really love this too. And so, you know, my idea is if I like it, maybe other people like it. And then here's the raven. And the other thing is the way these stamps are made, the edges are so sharp that they go right in. So I made these bars a couple weeks ago, and although it's suggested to stamp them within the first 24 hours in some sites, I think it depends on the hardness of your bar. And there's sort of, well, I'm going to show you. Anyway, so this one, this was the end cut. Yeah, there we go. That's a raven. Now the ravens are pretty tricky, so I'm going to say be patient with yourself if you want one of these, because they are very tricky, and I've been doing them and I find them tricky. These aren't so tricky, so I'm going to show you how to do this one today. And you can see all the little holes, those little air pockets. This was the end cut. You can see the lip of it right here. And so the end cut, for me and how I make my soaps, gets lots of little air bubbles, and I usually don't offer that. I just cut it off. But in this batch I did, and so I didn't realize all those little air pockets in there, but when I put the soap dough on there, it kind of made it like starshine, and I thought, oh, I kind of like it now. So there's that. So this one I stamped yesterday, and then I'll show you what they look like. So this is the stamp. And the nice thing, so the other thing I realized was when I first started to do this, like I was looking around and I made stamps for my logo and whatnot, and it just didn't come out. And I thought they were too much work, honestly. And I like to get good results. And so, and I know you've been following me for a while. It's not that I'm not fiddly. I'll give it my best, you know, but I don't like to feel like I'm setting myself up for failure. So that's why I didn't pursue the stamps necessarily, because I just thought they're just too fiddly. But now that I'm into them, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I didn't look at these in the right way. Anyway, so yeah, so here we go. So here's the seam right here. So that's the top right here. And I'm going to put it right in the middle. You got to put down a little bit of pressure, but so you can see, I don't want to push too much harder. So here's the other issue. I didn't see how to work these. That was the other issue, and why I'm making this video, so you can see how I work them. I'm not the end all be all. This is just how I work it, and I want to be successful, and I want you to be successful if you're going to use my products. So that's why I'm doing that. Anyway, because I think it makes sense. Okay, so if you see this right here, it's flush right here, so there's no space anymore. And then, so I just want to make sure that it's all in there. And then very little soap came out of it. Now, I'm fortunate because, yeah, see, I pushed a little bit too hard here, so I got a little indent right here, but that's okay, because I can plane this off. So I'm going to fill this in with soap dough and let it dry, and then I'm going to show you how I plane it off, because I have a planer. But you don't totally need a planer, because you can, maybe I'll do it on the one that I just did. I'll do this one because this is smoother. You don't really need a planer. You could use a palette knife to take it off too. So yeah, I'm very pleased with that. I just look at it and I'm like, oh, it's very pleasing to me. I don't know why. I'm just very happy with it. Anyway, so I'm going down the rabbit hole with designs because, you know, it doesn't do anybody any good just to put stuff everybody else is doing out there, because you go to them and get it. So, you know, so I put all my soap dough in an extruder when I'm doing this so that I could take off just a little bit. So I'll show you how I do this. Where am I? Ooh, that's not a good noise. Okay, I know I was saying something and I don't remember what it is. Oh, I know. So some of the things, like if your soap is and just all these stamps will work in soap dough perfectly. Like it's beautiful in soap dough. And ideally, I wanted it like, I'm like, okay, well that's fine, but I want it on my bars of soap. So that's what I'm perfecting, working on getting them in bars of soap. So the other thing is that you can spray these with alcohol, and I found it really depends on the quality of, you know, how sticky, how not sticky, all that. So I dip my finger in a little bit of water to smooth this down. And I'm going to take off a little bit of this so that it's more flush. And the other thing is I planed these before, because when I take off the top of it, I want it to be smooth. So So you could either, two things, you could either dust with cornstarch, because we know that helps things not to stick, or you could spray it with a little bit of alcohol. Too much, though, will make it stick because there's water in alcohol. So I found that it really depends on the circumstances. For example, when I'm making the flowers, maybe I'll put a picture in here, but lately I've been putting flowers on top of soap, and then I want all the detail in the flowers, so I can't put them through plastic. So what I do is I spray the cookie cutter with alcohol, and then I put it in because I want that detail and I want it to release. So the interesting thing about alcohol, rubbing alcohol is what I'm talking about, 91 at least % rubbing alcohol, is that there was another video online, I can't remember who did it, but they showed that rubbing alcohol, because there's water in alcohol, okay? So water, we know, makes soap stick to each other. Now, not initially it doesn't. Initially it sort of makes it slippery, but left to dry it will stick. And there's something, I don't know what all the chemical names are in alcohol, but that creates a layer. And so if we put water, okay, here's another theory, and these are all working theories, I just look at the results and then I figure it out from there. So if you put two sliver bars of soap in together and you leave them in your shower, they're going to stick together and to dry, but that's the caveat, they have to dry. So initially they don't stick and they'll slide apart, but if you leave them to dry, they will stick. Now, I found alcohol doesn't stick effectively even after dried. Like, as soon as if I try to attach things with alcohol, they just get slippery. They don't seem to stick very well. So I'm doing this here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this because I want all these little creases that I just made in here, I want them clean and gone. So I'm going to spray it with alcohol just to smooth out these creases the best that I can. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to plane that off, and I'll show you how I do that. So alcohol is good for cleaning things up and for smoothing out the surface of things. See, there's a little dip in there I can see. For smoothing out the surface of things because there's water in it, but it has some other chemicals in there that create a layer, so it doesn't necessarily bind. It's not a binding thing, and water isn't exactly a binding thing, but what it does is it sort of opens up the top of the soap a bit. It softens it so the soap can adhere to each other, and then it cures and it dries. Curing is a longer process, but it dries, and then those two bars of soap or two pieces of soap stick to each other. That's my observation. So I know that there's a story that goes around that, that you should always spray your tops of your alcohol or tops of your soap freshly made with alcohol. That pops bubbles, and that's helpful. And you don't want to add more water to the top of it necessarily. Too much causes orange peel effect and all this kind of stuff. And it works to some degree, but there's a deeper application to it that doesn't necessarily work. For example, if you spray alcohol and try to put two pieces of melt and pour together, it'll never stick. And melt and pour is sort of the same thing. It's hard to get them to stick to each other. So anyway, that goes down the rabbit hole a bit, and it's just information. So here's the other thing. What I do is I look at things or people that do things that I want to do, and then I also look at what works, because that's really much more important to me than holding on to some idea that seems like somebody else told it to me that I didn't really find that it worked very well. So I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in finding stuff that works. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know what I'm up to, and I'm down the design rabbit hole because there's just so many possibilities, and the person that I'm working with is really a lovely human. And so he's making these for me, and we're coming up with different ideas, and I wanted to share with you what I'm up to. So let me get to planing this off. Here's my planer. And here's another thing. If I spray, this is how I know about the wonderfulness of the alcohol. If I have a sticky soap, I spray it with alcohol, it'll slide right across. So I'm not going to do anything right now. I'm just going to slide it across and see what happens. So I got almost all of it except for this little bit. So let's do that because I could feel it. I didn't want to take off too much though. There we go. So there you go. I'm very, very happy with that. He looks pretty sharp and clear. So this is part of the reason why I'm doing this is there's just something very attractive to me about this and like clever. I just love it. I love the idea that it kind of boggles my mind a bit. So anyway, hopefully this helped you. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to, try and answer your questions. I don't know everything, but I know a little bit. And if you want, sign up, go over to the Sorcery Soap website and sign up for any stencil, any stamps that you might want. And that helps me to order. And then it also helps me to see what direction they're going in. We're going to this week offer a set of the Celtic stencils. That's these. There's a whole set of them, and we're going to offer those as a set. I know lots of people asked for those as a set instead of the individual ones. So, and that's more cost effective too for everybody. And then I'm working on, it's a big one, but I'm working on astrology ones, like a whole set of astrology stamps. Those will be fun, but really unique ones. I like my stencil astrology ones a great deal, but they're not translating as nicely into a stamp as I would like. So I'm looking into it. I'm not promising anything. And and if you have any suggestions of a stamp that you want to see, let me know. Because here's the other issue too that I wanted to address. I've been working with the vectors and working with the designs and starting to get a feel of what will be effective. Like this is quite effective. And what will be effective in a stamp. And instead of you going through all the hassle of making it and then realizing it doesn't work, and what a hassle that is, I know because I'm doing it right now. If you have a suggestion or you have an idea, toss it by me and maybe I can help you with that, or like at least tell you. Like for example, this one is quite detailed, right? And I thought, oh, that will be great. And it is, it works. It just doesn't work as effectively as something like this. So anyway, there's little nuances and details and understanding. And I think, how we start something we don't know. The stencils help me to get into this, to understand it even more. So anyway, I hope this helped. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're interested still in your own soap designs and soap creations. And thank you so much. Thanks to everybody that purchased a book. It's very supportive and encouraging. And there's still books available. We'll probably have more sets this year, but for right now, there's still books available. So anyway, thank you so much. Okay.